The Galactic Survival Showcase was the most anticipated event in the Unified Systems calendar. Held once every 10 cycles aboard the massive orbital arena Endurance, it drew delegates from across known space to witness representatives from various worlds demonstrate survival techniques in simulated hostile environments. Ambassador Takala of Vulcanus adjusted her temperature regulator as she took her seat in the first row. Her homeworld's lava plains had forged her species into resilient beings with silicon-based exoskeletons that could withstand temperatures exceeding 700 degrees Celsius. Beside her sat the Zethare diplomat, his translucent membrane glistening, with protective enzymes that neutralized the acid rain storms of his native planet. "I hear we have a human this year," Takala remarked, her voice crackling like cooling magma. His Zethery's membrane rippled in what passed for amusement. "A human? From Earth? I thought that was just a myth, the so-called Death World." From the third row, Kevex, the predator hunter from Arkle Prime, leaned forward. His scales shifted color as he spoke. "Earth is no myth. My ancestors traded with them briefly before declaring the system off limits. Too dangerous, they said. Not the planet, the inhabitants." The arena's lights dimmed as High Chancellor Zorn took the central platform. The ancient Centaurian's 6 limbs moved in perfect synchronicity as he activated the holographic display. "Distinguished delegates, we welcome you to the 87th Galactic Survival Showcase. Today, representatives will demonstrate their species' adaptability in simulated hostile environments." The first demonstration featured a Vulcanus warrior traversing a simulation of their homeworld's most treacherous lava field. The audience watched, impressed but unsurprised, as she navigated the molten terrain with practiced ease. Next came a Zethari scientist who moved gracefully through a storm of corrosive rain that would dissolve most carbon-based life forms in seconds. When the Archelian hunter stalked through a dense jungle filled with predators, even Takala had to admit it was impressive how he became one with the environment, simultaneously predator and prey. "And now," announced Chancellor Zorn, "we have a last-minute addition. Earth has finally sent a representative." A murmur rippled through the audience. Earth was a legend, a planet so hostile that it had produced beings rumored to be both frighteningly resilient and inexplicably reckless. From the 4th row stood a surprisingly ordinary-looking being. Bipedal, no visible armor or exoskeleton, no apparent defensive adaptations. Just pink skin, dark hair, and a disarming smile. "That's Jake Henderson," whispered an information specialist to Takala, "Earth's first official ambassador to the Unified Systems." Chancellor Zorn addressed the human. "Ambassador Henderson, are you prepared to demonstrate Earth's survival techniques?" Jake grinned and stepped forward. "Ready when you are, Chancellor. And please, call me Jake." The arena's simulation engineers looked nervous as they input the parameters for Earth's challenge zones. The main engineer turned to Jake. "Ambassador, we've prepared 4 simulations based on Earth's most extreme environments. They exceed safety protocols for non-terrestrial participants." Jake glanced at the holographic preview, and his smile widened. "Perfect. Let's get started." As the human walked toward the simulation chamber, Takala couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy was about to learn something profound about these Earth creatures, something that might forever change how they viewed their place in the cosmos. Asterisk. The simulation chamber hummed to life as Jake entered. Towering walls of transparent quantum glass allowed the audience to observe while containing the deadly environments within. The first 3 sections still displayed the homeworld challenges: Vulcanus' lava plains, Zethery's acid storms, and Arkle Prime's predator jungle. But the 4th section, several delegates gasped audibly as it materialized. "What is that?" demanded Kavex, his scales flashing warning colors. The simulation engineer's voice trembled slightly. "Earth Zone 1, radioactive desert storm. replicating conditions from a region humans call Chernobyl-Gobi hybrid. Radiation levels at 8,000 millisieverts. Temperature fluctuations between 50 and minus 10 degrees Celsius within minutes. Wind-borne silicate particles capable of shredding exposed flesh. Plus toxic heavy metal contamination. That's unsurvivable, whispered the Zethari diplomat. Chancellor Zorn turned to Jake. Ambassador, we can adjust the parameters. No need, Jake interrupted, stretching his arms casually. This looks about right. The chamber sealed, and Jake approached. A Earth Zone entrance. Several delegates leaned forward in anticipation of what specialized equipment the human would request. But Jake simply removed his formal diplomatic jacket, revealing a simple light garment underneath. No protective suit, no breathing apparatus, no radiation shield. Ambassador, the engineer's voice came through the speakers. There must be a misunderstanding. These conditions will cause severe cellular damage within minutes. Jake laughed. We have a place like this, back home where I did my military training. The instructors called it Tuesday morning warm-up. He pulled a small cloth from his pocket and tied it loosely around his face. This should handle the dust before anyone could object. Jake jogged into the swirling radioactive sandstorm. The audience fell silent, all eyes fixed on the life sign monitors. Takala expected them to flatline almost immediately. Instead, they showed elevated heart rate consistent with light exercise, stable body temperature, and most shockingly, no signs of radiation poisoning. Jake moved through the storm with practiced efficiency, creating small shelters from the landscape, finding water sources hidden beneath the surface, and neutralizing toxic elements with techniques that seemed impossibly simple. He's not just surviving, Kybex murmured. He's thriving. 40 minutes later, Jake emerged from the zone, brushing sand from his hair. That was refreshing. Reminds me of a camping trip I took in Nevada as a kid. The simulation engineer stared at the readings in disbelief. Your cells show minimal radiation damage, and your body is already repairing it. How is this possible? Jake shrugged. Evolution, I guess. Earth's background radiation is pretty spicy compared to most habitable worlds. We adapted. Chancellor Zorn's appendages twitched in amazement. Are all humans this resistant to radiation? Oh, I'm nothing special, Jake replied. My cousin works in nuclear waste disposal. She'd probably take a nap in there. He pointed to the next chamber. What's that one? The engineer swallowed visibly. Earth Zone 2, Category 5 hurricane over predator-infested waters. Jake's eyes lit up. Sweet. We call those shark tornadoes back home. Had a great vacation in Florida. During one of those? Let's do it. As Jake bounced toward the second chamber, Takala exchanged bewildered glances with the Zethari diplomat. What kind of hellscape was Earth, if its inhabitants considered these conditions recreational? The answer, they were beginning to realize, would rewrite galactic understanding of what it meant to be dangerous. Activating Earth Zone 2, announced the engineer, still visibly shaken by Jake's performance in the radioactive desert. The chamber transformed into a raging seascape. Monstrous waves crashed against jagged rocks as hurricane-force winds howled, creating spiraling water columns that reached 30 meters high. Dark shapes circled beneath the churning surface predators with multiple rows of serrated teeth. Evolved specifically for this violent ecosystem, the Arcalian delegation leaned forward, suddenly interested. Predators were something they understood. These aquatic hunters, explained the engineer, are based on Earth's great white sharks, but enhanced with traits from other marine predators. Each possesses the bite force to shear through ship hulls, electroreception organs to detect heartbeats, and hunting intelligence comparable to pack predators. Finally, something even a human can't casually dismiss: Cavex remarked with satisfaction. Jake studied the simulation from the entrance platform, whistling appreciatively. He pulled off his boots and shirt, keeping only his lightweight pants. Ambassador. Chancellor Zorn's voice crackled through the com. Surely you require some protective equipment? An environmental suit? Weapons? Jake laughed. For a swim? Nah, this is like spring break at Panama City Beach, minus the college students. He pointed to the shark-like creatures. Those fellows look like what we call great whites back home. Beautiful animals. Asterisk. Before anyone could respond, Jake dove headfirst into the churning waters. The audience collectively gasped. 3 predators immediately changed course, converging on the human with frightening speed. Emergency shutdown, shouted Chancellor Zorn. Wait! Takala interrupted, pointing at the life monitors. Look! Jake was swimming directly toward the approaching predators. As the first creature opened its enormous jaws, Jake twisted with impossible agility, grabbing the creature's sensitive gills and redirecting its momentum. The predator thrashed in confusion, then retreated. Asterisk, asterisk. Did he just ... intimidate it? The Zethari's voice was barely audible over the simulated storm. Jake emerged briefly on a rocky outcrop, waving cheerfully at the stunned audience before diving back into the churning waters. For the next 30 minutes, he navigated the violent seascape with inexplicable ease-riding currents, using the water cyclones to gain height, and even approaching the predators with what could only be described as playful curiosity. At one point, he actually rode atop one of the largest creatures, guiding it through the water by gently touching its dorsal fin. When Jake finally returned to the entrance platform, the hurricane-force winds had plastered his hair against his head, but he was grinning widely. That was amazing. The fluid dynamics in your simulation are spot on. Those babies swim just like real sharks. He wiped water from his eyes. The hurricane could be stronger, though. Only felt like a Category 3 to me. The engineer stared at his instruments. It's a Category 5, the strongest possible, Jake shrugged. Must be the difference in planetary mass affecting atmospheric pressure. On Earth, our Category 5 South have wind speeds that would probably register as 7 or 8 on your scale. A scientist from the molecular collective spoke up. Ambassador, our scans indicate your epidermis sustained multiple lacerations from the coral analogs, yet you show no distress. Oh, these little scratches? Jake looked down at several cuts along his arms and chest that were already clotting. They'll be gone by tomorrow. Human skin regenerates pretty quickly. Useful adaptation when you grow up playing on a planet covered in sharp stuff. Chancellor Zorn's appendages were now vibrating with excitement. This is unprecedented. Are you saying humans regularly engage with such predators? Well, most of us just swim with them for fun or research. My sister works with great whites. She puts trackers on them to study migration patterns. Gets bitten occasionally, but nothing serious. The audience murmured in astonishment. A bite from such a predator would be fatal to most known species. Earth Zone 3 is prepared, called the engineer, pointing to the next chamber where swirling snow and dark shapes moved through an icy landscape. Jake's eyes widened with genuine delight. Is that ... a polar environment with apex predators? Man, it's like you guys designed my perfect vacation. The third chamber materialized into a frigid wasteland. Howling winds drove snow across an icy tundra, reducing visibility to near zero. The temperature display showed -75 degrees Celsius, cold enough to freeze the blood of most carbon-based life forms within minutes. Earth Zone 3, the engineer explained, voice steadier now as if resigned to the impossibility of surprising the human. Arctic megafauna hunting ground. We've populated it with reconstructions of Earth's most dangerous land predators, both extinct and extant. Through the swirling snow, massive shapes moved with predatory grace. 8-foot-tall dire wolves prowled in packs. Saber-toothed cats stalked from ice formations. And dominating the landscape, a 12-foot-tall cave bear stood on its hind legs. Roaring a challenge that vibrated through the quantum glass, Cavex scales shifted to excited crimson. Now we'll see the human's limitations. No sentient being approaches apex predators without weapons. Jake, still damp from the hurricane zone, bounced excitedly. You included Ice Age megafauna. That's so thoughtful. He glanced around. Any chance you've got clothes I could borrow? My cold weather gear is back in my quarters. A Zethari attendant nervously provided a standard thermal suit designed for Class M atmospheres. Jake examined it with a laugh. This is what you consider Arctic. Gear? It's basically a light jacket. He shrugged it on anyway. Better than nothing, I guess. My grandmother would call this spring gardening attire. Before entering the chamber, Jake grabbed a length of sturdy cable from a maintenance panel. Mind if I borrow this? Always good to have rope. The attendant nodded mutely, beyond questioning. The human's choices. Jake stepped into the Arctic zone, immediately disappearing into the whiteout conditions. The audience watched the monitors closely. His core temperature dropped rapidly, but stabilized at what would be hypothermic for most species. Yet his vital signs remained strong. For 10 minutes, there was no visual on Jake. Then, a collective gasp rose as he reappeared riding on the back of the cave bear. Somehow, he had fashioned a crude harness from the cable and was controlling the massive predator like a mount. Is this ... common human behavior? Takala asked the information specialist, who could only shake her head in bewilderment. Jake guided the bear through the snowstorm, using it to herd the dire wolves away from their intended path. When a saber-toothed cat leapt at him, Jake rolled off the bear, somehow causing the two predators to fight each other instead. He's turning the apex predators against each other, Kivex whispered. That's what we do with our prey. Jake eventually returned to the entrance, his borrowed thermal suit torn in multiple places, but grinning broadly. Frost covered his hair and eyebrows. That was spectacular. The sensory details were perfect, the way your ice crunches, how the predators react to changing wind direction. Really brought me back to winter survival training in Siberia. You ... Train in such conditions? Asked the Zethari diplomat. Sure, great place for a winter break. Nothing wakes you up like wrestling a polar bear before breakfast. Jake stretched casually. Though your megafauna are a bit less aggressive than I expected. Our wolves back home work together better. And the saber-tooth needs stronger neck. Muscles for an effective killing bite. The chamber technicians looked at each other in disbelief. They had programmed the predators with maximum aggression settings. Final zone is ready, announced the head engineer, his voice now filled with anticipation rather than concern. Earth Zone 4. The last chamber erupted into apocalyptic chaos. An active volcano spewed molten lava across a charred landscape. Lightning storms created a deadly web of electricity across the sky. Pyroclastic flows raced down slopes, incinerating everything in their path. The ground itself split open, revealing magma chambers beneath. Volcanic extinction event, the engineer explained. Conditions based on Earth's prehistoric Permian-Triassic. Boundary event, the most devastating extinction in your planet's history. Jake stared at the hellscape, eyes wide. The audience leaned forward, finally seeing apprehension on the human's face. Then, inexplicably, Jake began to laugh. It started as a chuckle and grew into full, joyous laughter. Is it ... too much? Chancellor Zorn asked hesitantly. Jake wiped tears of mirth from his eyes. No, it's perfect. It's just this one's exactly like my summer camp. He stripped off the tattered thermal suit, now standing in just his damp pants from the hurricane zone. Give me 5 minutes to warm up, and I'm going in." As the human jogged happily toward what any reasonable being would consider certain death, Takala turned to Kavex. What kind of world produces a species that sees this as a playground? Kavex's scales had faded to a pale, worried blue. The kind of world that the rest of the galaxy should be very, very careful not to threaten. Jake stepped into the volcanic hellscape with the casual confidence of someone entering their childhood home. The temperature readings spiked immediately over 200 degrees Celsius near the active lava flows, hot enough to melt the flesh from most known species. The human navigated through this inferno with inexplicable grace, leaping across chasms of bubbling magma, using superheated gas vents to propel himself higher, and somehow predicting the pattern of lightning strikes seconds before they occurred. "This is impossible," muttered a Centaurian scientist. "The human's biology cannot withstand these conditions." "And yet," Takala replied, "there he is." When Jake sprinted directly through a pyroclastic flow that should have incinerated him instantly, Chancellor Zorn demanded an explanation from the monitoring station. "His cellular structure is adapting," reported the bewildered technician, "rewriting itself in real time to resist the conditions. We've never seen anything like it." For 45 minutes, Jake explored the volcanic zone with childlike enthusiasm, stopping occasionally to examine rock formations or collect samples of uniquely crystallized minerals formed in the extreme conditions. At one point, he actually swam through a small lava pond, emerging on the other side with his skin glowing red but undamaged. When he finally returned to the entrance, his body temperature was elevated well beyond what should be survivable, yet he showed no signs of distress. If anything, he looked invigorated. "That," he declared, "was the best simulation I've experienced since joining the diplomatic corps. The lava viscosity was spot on. Reminded me of Yellowstone's supervolcanic caldera during active season." The entire audience had fallen into stunned silence. Chancellor Zorn finally found his voice. "Ambassador Henderson, Jake, I believe we owe you and your species an apology." Jake raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "For our ignorance. We've been classifying worlds by their environmental hazards, radiation levels, predator populations, atmospheric toxicity. We thought Earth was merely another death world, perhaps slightly more extreme than most." The Chancellor's appendages moved in a gesture of profound respect. "We were wrong. Earth isn't a death world," the Zithari diplomat whispered. "Earth is the death world." Jake looked confused. "I wouldn't call it that. Earth is beautiful. We have forests and oceans and mountains that routinely kill most species." Kavex interrupted. "Ambassador, every environment you just casually navigated would cause extinction-level events on our worlds. And you called it a playground," Takala added. "Your species evolved on a planet that would annihilate most life forms in the galaxy. And you consider it ... recreational." Understanding dawned on Jake's face. "Oh, I guess I never thought about it that way. We're just adapted to our environment, like you are to yours." "No," Chancellor Zorn said firmly. "This is different. The Vulcanis adapt to lava plains, but they can't swim in magma. The Archalians adapt to predators, but they don't ride apex. Hunters for fun. You humans, you don't just survive your world's death traps. You thrive in them." A deep silence fell over the assembly. "What does this mean for the unified systems?" someone finally asked. Chancellor Zorn turned to address the entire audience. "It means we must reconsider humanity's position in our galactic community. We've been treating them as newcomers needing protection. In reality," he glanced at Jake, who was absently playing with a piece of cooled volcanic glass. "They may be the most formidable species we've ever encountered." Jake looked up, suddenly concerned. "You're not afraid of us, are you? We're peaceful explorers. We just want to learn and share knowledge. Of course, Takala said carefully. But perhaps you can understand our ... recalibration. You're casual. Recreation takes place in conditions that would be apocalyptic for our worlds. Jake rubbed the back of his neck, embarrassed. Well, when you put it that way. But honestly, we're more impressed by your achievements. You've built interstellar. Civilizations without the evolutionary pressure cooker that shaped us. That's remarkable. Perhaps, Chancellor Zoran suggested, this is the beginning of a more honest understanding between our peoples. Earth isn't just another world, it's unique in our experience. And humans aren't just another species. You're survivors of conditions. We can barely simulate. Jake grinned. I'll drink to that. Though fair warning, what we consider a mild recreational beverage might knock most of you unconscious. Laughter rippled through the audience. Nervous but genuine as the Galactic Survival Showcase concluded. Delegates from across the unified systems approached Jake with new respect and countless questions. News spread rapidly through the station, then outward to the galaxy beyond. Earth wasn't a myth. It was real. And its people didn't just survive in death's backyard. They had made it their playground. The universe would never look at humans the same way again. They showed Earth's deadliest. Zones and the human in row 4 called it a playground asterisk.